I'm going to show you how to access the progress monitoring graph in SM8 and the student mastery report. If you watched the previous video, you saw the Run a Report feature in the SM8 teacher dashboard, which is located down here. The reports that I'm about to show you are accessed a little differently. The first report is a Student Performance Details report. This report generates the graph that is used for the MTSS progress monitoring. To access this report, you're going to select the Students tab from the top menu. From here, My Students will be displayed. Next, you will use the gear over on the right side and select Student Performance Details. This will generate a graph that gives you the information needed for MTSS progress monitoring. From this graph, we can see the student's primary target, which is a student's assigned level plus 1 year's growth. So, for example, this is a 4th grade student. His assigned level was a 4.0. His primary target, the gold one, is 1 year's growth, which is a 5.0. After the student did the initial placement, the computer put him at a 2.75, so 1 year's growth will be 3.75. That is a student's secondary target. Each one of the blue dots indicates a session. I can hover over each one of those to show exactly what date and the score that a student did for that particular day. There are several ways to snip this graph. You can use the snipping tool built in. You can also do Control P to print this report, but this is the report that is needed for the MTSS graph. I'm going to show you another example of a graph, student progress monitoring graph. Let's go one more here. All right, so we can see that this student also had, a 4th grade student, an initial placement level of a 2.25, so the student's secondary target is 3.25. All right, going back, this student hasn't been on the program very long. However, the initial placement put him at a 4.25, so this student's secondary target is going to be 1 year's growth, which would be a 5.25. So this is the Student Performance Details report. The next report that we will look at is the Student Mastery report. You can select to run this report by Common Core Standards. You're going to select Mastery at the top, and I'm looking at Reading. So I have a drop-down menu where I can view those by Common Core. I can view them by the Florida standards, or I can view them by the Sm8 skills. For our lesson today, we're going to look at the Florida standards. All right. When I select the Florida standards, I can see each individual standard, and over to the right will tell me approximately how much of my class has mastered that standard. Now, if I want more in-depth information, I can click on the arrow over here, and it will take me to that information, and it will tell me which student has mastered that particular standard. Let's go back here, and let me come down to this particular one here. We see students, pretty much all the students in my class listed, and you will see some of them have mastered it, some of them have not mastered it, and one student was identified at risk. However, since having several more opportunities, that student has now mastered that skill. So this is a great report to kind of get some classroom data. However, you can run the report by individual students. So at the very bottom of this report, you will see an icon that says Run Mastery Report. When I select that, notice up here I do have a pop-up. So if I click on that pop-up, I'm going to select to always allow. And now when I run that report, it will generate 1 page per student. Since it is a 1 page per student report, it will take a few moments to generate. So I'm going to come back into Success Maker and give it just a moment for it to run. And hopefully in just a moment it will appear. All right, finally the report has been generated, and you can see that I have selected to run this report by the Florida standards, and it will give you that substandard or that anchor standard, and it will tell me exactly if the student has mastered it or has not mastered it. If I scroll down, you can also see that it has identified the student being at risk. So that student will have this particular skill, reading on level text with purpose and understanding in delayed presentation. So they will get some more basic skills and work their way back up to try to master that particular skill. As I mentioned earlier, it is 1 page per person. So if I want to look at my next student here, I just use the arrows to scroll to the next student, and you can see this student has mastered some skills and has also identified as being at risk for some of those skills as well. I can always print the report by selecting the printer icon here. I can export the report if I need to upload it into a specific program. I can export it as an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF, and just determine where I want that export to be housed or saved. So those are the reports: the student performance details report, the one with the graph, and this one that we're looking at currently is the student mastery report. If you have any questions, feel free to email TOSA, and someone will be happy to answer any of your questions pertaining to these reports.